Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning. I love Thursdays because I get to hang out with all of you guys. Um, so, every Thursday we bring you a different speaker who has some kind of tip or tool or really cool thing that they're doing inside the real estate industry. And today is no different. I am going to ask you that if you are not the speaker, that you please make sure that you are muted so that any background noise doesn't interrupt the speaker, whether it's dogs or kids or whatever. We love them, but we want to stay focused on the speaker. Today we have for you something that I found that I thought was so cool because of the amount of valuable free information that you can get from what he does. So, Stephen, are you there? Can you unmute and
Oh
introduce
yeah.
yourself?
Thanks for
Stephen, tell
having
us,
me.
yeah, tell us about you.
Yeah.
Tell us, like how you got into this, how long you've been in the industry, and then tell us a little bit about what you have to offer. And you've got screen sharing, so I'm gonna let you run with it, buddy.
Okay.
You got 20 minutes, so do it.
Perfect. So, no we're time on time, and guys, again, apologize for being late. Technical difficulties, but I know every one of your time is valuable here, and I appreciate you all showing up today. So my name is Steven Morales. I am a licensed agent in Florida, Jacksonville specifically, and I've been doing real estate for about a decade now. And so I do have, quite a bit of experience. Some of you probably have more experience than me, but in that time frame, I've also been involved with real estate investing. And the biggest issue with getting into real estate investing is finding great deals, right? And finding great off-market deals, which can kind of also coincide with finding off-market listings. And so, by what I used to use was other applications to help me find these off-market deals, which was like the main one that you maybe have heard about is PropStream, right? And essentially, I had a good friend of mine that was in the investing side, and he is a full stack developer. So he develops, applications. There's a lot of back end work for companies, and he saw me kind of working on pulling a list of off market deals through PropStream, and he asked me what I was doing, and I basically told him, hey, this is how I find our deals. Check it out. This is how I pull lists. This is how I find these off market homes that we can approach sellers with, and give them offers, right? And the best thing about it was that since I was licensed, if it wasn't something that met, like, let's say, our criteria, or we couldn't come to terms with the price of the seller, we could always offer to list their homes for them. And so that's essentially how we came up with this product called Prime Tracers, which essentially we give access, free access to off-market property data for 160 million plus properties across the US. So it's nationwide property access. And then in turn with that, we also offer skip tracing. So you may or may not have heard of skip tracing before, but skip tracing is essentially a way for us to access a database. It's our database. And essentially, based on like the properties that you pull, we can go ahead and use our ID graph to essentially find these homeowners and essentially append their contact information. Now, some of you, most of you, if you're registered with NAR and you have MLS access, I know that they also offer what's called forewarn. And so it's very similar to that. And essentially what ours does though, instead of just doing like individual searches, which you can do, you can actually do full bulk pools. Like you can skip trace, thousands of people at a time and create a marketing list for yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into the presentation. Today, my goal is to basically leave you guys with knowing how to build lists, skip trace smarter, and start more conversations without having to pay for overpriced tools, because there's a lot of bells and whistles out there. There's a lot of people that are getting like shiny object syndrome, and you may have come across multiple tools, right, that you can see ads for. You might even see some of our ads. And so our goal here is to essentially show you how to build lists the right way, skip trace with high accuracy, and start seller conversations effectively. And so the problem that a lot of realtors and investors find is that most of the data that they come into is outdated. There's a lot of big name tools out there, like let's say PropStream, for example, charges you $100 a month just to have a membership with them. And they make it also very hard to cancel, and their skip tracing is very expensive, right? So you could spend thousands of dollars on a tool and not even get results, and that can be very frustrating. I'm sure tons of you out there have already spent money on either like PPL, which is like pay per lead, or you probably have paid. Some of you may have even paid Zillow before for like, locking out zip codes. And so it can be very frustrating when you invest in a tool and you're not getting results, right? And the issues with most tools, like again, prop tech companies are charging around $97 or more, $100 on average a month. Plus, they're charging anywhere from 7 to 15 cents per skip trace records if you're doing bulk skip tracing. And they rope you into paying hefty annual fees and sometimes even offer you free skip tracing, but they don't mention how outdated their data is or if there's any hidden fees. And not all skip tracing is created equal. So data is kind of shared between, there's like 3 to 5 very large data centers here in the US. And essentially, what companies like us do is we essentially gather data from them. And essentially, we will go ahead and digest that information, clean it up, and present it in a form that you guys can utilize for your business. The cool thing about Prime Traces, though, is that for the data that we own, 95% of it's actually in-house through first-party opt-in. And so most of the data that we get is actually opted in from the provider itself, and the other 5% is maybe like third-party brokerages that we work with. And so there's real opportunity here. There's a lot of hidden sellers that you may not be tapping into right now. So obviously we have 160 million plus properties that we give you free access to. And there's owners out there, hundreds of thousands of owners that are either distressed, they're vacant, or they have vacant properties, or they're tired landlords, right? We're talking about landlords that have owned properties for 10 years plus, and maybe they're ready to cash on their investment or they're tired of managing tenants. You also have high equity owners. So the beauty about being a real estate agent is, you could reach out to, let's say, one of our favorite lists, actually, like people have owned properties for 5 plus years and they have, let's say, 50% or more equity, which means that they have plenty of room to get, let's say, top dollar for the home, pay off their mortgage, have a sizable nest egg that they can cash out on, and also fit a realtor's commission into that structure, right? And what you need to make this happen is obviously a vast database, which we can provide you with. So this is going to be for you guys, realtors, real estate investors, and sometimes there's wholesalers also looking for more deal flow. And the way to scale this essentially is making calls on targeted lists that you create daily, weekly, or monthly. And it's still a volume game. So just to give you a perspective here, it takes about, let's say if you were calling all high equity owners, it takes about, let's say 10,000 records a month. And let's say if you hired a virtual assistant to help you with those cold calls, then let's say they're cold calling 8 hours a day. Let's be real. Not a lot of people like cold calling, and so that's why I bring up the whole VA virtual assistant situation, because sometimes most of us don't like cold calling. Like I did it for years with like using a dialer system, but once I had my first few commission checks, I went ahead and outsourced all that. But essentially, the way that it goes is that you have 2 to 4 leads that you generate per day using this kind of method, and then that leads you to 40 to 60 leads a month. And from that, you should really have 10 to 15 warm leads in which you should be able to get 1 to 2 listings from those leads. So it is definitely a volume game. I'm not going to lie about that, but we do provide you the best data so that you can approach sellers correctly. And so you could build powerful lead lists in minutes. You could do target absentee owners, high equity sellers that we were talking about earlier. We even have access to tax lien properties, pre-probate leads, and pre-foreclosures as well. So pre-foreclosures are actually one of probably our second highest performing list, because those are people who obviously aren't, they're not foreclosed on yet, but let's say they have 3 to 5 months to either pay off their arrears or figure out something in order to get caught up on their loan, right? And normally for a realtor, that's you coming in and essentially listing their property for sale, and hopefully they have enough equity they have enough equity to, one, pay your commission, of course, and two, be able to pay off that loan, satisfy that mortgage. You can also use multiple filters such as 10 years ownership plus, out of state owner, right? So that can kind of also tie into like tired landlords if they're out of state and if they owned a property for 10 years and it's vacant or it's a secondary property. That's also a good like motivated indicator. And then you can also stack criteria so you can increase like different areas. So let's say you're licensed in Florida, but you also have, let's say, satellite teams. So you could actually stack lists. So for us, for example, we pull Jacksonville, Tampa, and Orlando at the same time because we have agents that work those areas. And so the difference with us, this is just a whole bunch of like high, level vocabulary, but don't worry about this as much. Just know that we give you comprehensive data. We give you accurate name and data matching. We have tailored accuracy thresholds, and our data basically covers 270 million households for the contact information, and we actually have access to 65 million businesses. So what that means for you is that you could actually also skip trace LLCs. And so if like let's say if you're working with investors and let's say they have a portfolio and this LLC owns multiple properties and you kind of want to get either let's say in contact with them for property management, or if you want to possibly help them find more stuff to add to their portfolio, you can reach out to these LLCs as well and find the business decision maker for that LLC, skip trace them, and get in contact with them. And all of our data is updated every day. And it's over, we basically have 2 trillion data sets, over 8,000 indexes. So it's a lot of information that we have access to. And what our most of our people are seeing is around 80% accuracy. It's 75 to 80% depending on where you are. Certain remote locations, we're not going to have as accurate data, but like for most of you that live in high density areas or high turnover like zip codes, the accuracy there is going to be very, very high. You have, again, unlimited access to 160 million plus homes. And the best part is we don't do any subscriptions because a lot of people ask us, well, hey, how do we cancel? This is like we would have a very, very low barrier entry tool because we developed it with realtors in mind, investors in mind that are just getting started out. We don't want a lot of people to any subscriptions. So all the data that you get a pull list on is free, and you literally just pay as you go for the skip tracing. And so this was actually one of our first users that we've ever had. And he found a property out in Nashville that he actually made $35,000 on his first deal. And then his next 2 deals were over 30,000 each. And he did that in a matter of 4 months using our data. And this was just our conversation with him. But the market is changing. So more investors are chasing fewer deals. Skip tracing with bad data is obviously costing you opportunities. And most sellers work with the first person who comes in contact with them. But also, again, coming back to like the whole volume game, you also got to make sure that you stay consistent in your follow-up because obviously I would say they did the math, it's like 15-20% of sellers that you talk to will want to work with you on the first try, but the other 80% you got to follow up at least 5 to 6 times until you get a yes from them. So just keep that in mind. So we give normally when the people that work with Debbie, we do a 7-day game plan. And so the first step is to help you build a list, the pre-foreclosure, tax liens, or high equity list. There's also a demo on our page. And so if you guys want to like go ahead and schedule a demo with us or someone on our team, it might even be me, we can show you how to pull those lists on a one-on-one situation. That's completely free. And there's also video walkthroughs that we provide as well to show you how to build the perfect list. You can also, step 2 is going to be like the skip tracing. So that's when you get the contact details. You can do multiple phone numbers. You could also do emails, or if you only want to do, let's say, mobile numbers, you could do mobile numbers only as well, so that you can filter out landlines and voice over IPs. And then step 3 is we want to challenge you guys to call 750 sellers this week. So today's Thursday. Let's go ahead and start you off on Monday next week. And essentially, I would say, we'll start you guys out with like, let's say 125 records is what we normally give people in this group. And so, 125 records, you should be able to warm up, do like, let's say an hour of calls a day and kind of see how you feel about that. But the best thing that you could do is to incorporate a dialer system. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of dialer systems, but there's Ready Mode, there's Kixi, there's Five9, right? Some of you probably have used Mojo. But I would definitely advise if you're going to do like outbound reach that you incorporate a dialer because it's so much easier to do your cold call campaigns. And so, again, like highlighting what I just said, we're going to give you 100 free skip traces to get started. And then I can actually go ahead and roll you guys before we get into the Q&A, I just want to show you guys how to pull a list quick using our system. So let me go ahead and show you that. I'm probably just, here rambling on. You guys haven't even seen the product yet, right? So this is Prime Traces. This is exactly, once you sign in, again, sign up is free. You just need your email. If you have a Gmail account, you can literally just sign in with Google. This is essentially the dashboard. So as soon as you log in, this is what you're going to see, right? It's going to be your property list builder. And so I'm going to go ahead and just put Jacksonville because that's my city. And so if I type in Jacksonville, Florida, it'll go and pop up here and it's going to autofill and you just select that location and then it'll go ahead and highlight your city. You can also look up properties like based on like if you want to look at exact property addresses, you can do single searches as well. Or you could do it by city like we just did, county, city, or zip, state, or the APN number if you're like really specifically trying to look for a property and you're having a hard time finding it. So we have Jacksonville selected right now. The next bar is going to search bar is going to be the lead types. And so we have a few dozen lead types here for you to check out. The most popular ones are going to be absentee owner. If you're looking for a cash buyer list, you can pull up a list of cash buyers. You can see here in Jacksonville, we have 115,000 cash buyers. But we normally want to filter that down. If let's say you just want to pull a list of pre-foreclosures, you can see we have a lot of pre-foreclosures here in Jacksonville. And that's, for obvious reasons, or foreclosures are, people in default their mortgages in the past few months has been skyrocketing. But pre-foreclosures, we already have 1,893 properties that we can call on. These are people that need help. Some people like here, you can see they have 2% equity, no equity, right? But some of those people here, they have 43% equity and they're in pre-foreclosure. This is somebody that you guys could help, right? So if I clicked on this property here, it'll pull up all the information. It'll show how many open mortgages there are, the estimated mortgage balance. We even have the opportunity graph here, which shows the estimated equity that they have. So they have about 43% equity or $165,000 in equity. And we even use a lender grade AVM model. And that one, you can see here, has like a 95% confidence rating. And so this confidence rating here, you guys are real estate professionals. You know that estimates and AVM models are kind of hit or miss. That's why we have this confidence score. So unless it's like 93% or higher, I probably wouldn't like, you just do your own due diligence, right? You guys have the MLS, you can run your own comps. And so obviously you guys used to doing CMAs. I would have always advised you in CMAs, but this is just here to kind of help you, off the top rope. If you're like, you just need to figure out a quick price, you can kind of quote the seller if you're on the phone with them that their property is worth. And so you also have the ownership information here. So you could skip trace them directly. So if I were to go ahead and click here and skip trace, I could do phone numbers and emails, right? And then if we get any information back, it'll pop up here. So you can see we got three phone numbers that came back. And then we also have the property characteristic information, tax information. So when you're filling out your contract, if you're not on the MLS, you can go ahead and copy the parcel ID, legal description from here, and paste it on there. You can actually see that this person, even though they're in pre-foreclosure, they've got two properties that they own, and it'll actually show the portfolio value. So this is really handy if you work with, like, let's say investors or, a fund or something like that, and you're trying to like increase a buyer's list. You're trying to call people that do a lot of buying in the city. You can find people based on like their portfolio value, how many properties they own. Like for me, when I have a cash buyers list, when we build ours, it's 3 properties minimum that they own. It's a valuation. Their estimated portfolio value has to be 3 times what the average home value is for that area. So for Jacksonville, that's like $400,000. So we would do 3 properties minimum, 1.2 million is the minimum portfolio value. And you can also go into like the pre-foreclosure details, right? So this one had the recording date. This person had their pre-foreclosure started in February 11th, 2025. You can see the trustee's address, what document type was served, the phone number of the trustee, lender name, and all that information. We have a demographic information as well on the property detail page, so that can like show the median income for that area. It'll also show the fair market rent value depending on the number of bedrooms that the property has. And then if you want to go to comps and nearby listings, you could do that as well. So again, I would rely on your local MLS to run comps because you guys pay for that, right? So you want to probably, if you're going to be doing CMAs, do it through your MLS system. But if you're just quickly like on the phone and you're trying to work out the numbers quickly, you could do this. Do like, let's say recent sales in the last 6 months. I want to do 10 property results, and I want to do it within like, let's say a half-mile radius, right? And then all the comps will show up here. And you could do it based on, MLS list price. You could also do like square footage, minimum, max, right? Minimum years built, like normally for like year built, you want within the last decade. So like this property here, this one was built in 2017. So we probably want it between, let's say, 2000 and 2007 and up to now, right? That would probably be where we would want to go. So let's do 2007 to 2025. And so these are going to be our comps right here. So we have 1, 2. Oh, these are actually townhomes though. Is this one a townhome? No, it's not. So we wouldn't want to use those. We would use these. So we have these 2 properties right here. And then let's say if we did it based on price, right? Because it looks like those are the townhomes down there. We select these 2 properties. And you'll actually see here to the right, it'll go ahead and start automatically filtering the value. And so as a realtor, I personally like to use the comp-based value because this takes the averages of the comp selected, right, divided by the total number of properties. And then there's also the square footage based value, which some investors like to use. So, and then it'll just keep adding up depending on like which ones you select. This one's not a comp though, but I'm just showing you how it adds up, right? And you could download this as a CSV file, like spreadsheet, or we also have an actual detailed PDF report similar to a CMA. We're working on that as well before that gets released. But all this information I just showed you guys is completely free. And so if you actually want to like download a list, like let's say you want to download this entire pre-foreclosure list, you just go ahead and select all. You can select max here, right? And then if you want to, you could just download this list. Some people do mailers, so they'll just download lists for free from us. Or you can download and skip trace it, and then it'll ask you for multiple phone numbers as an output. So that's basically we give you up to 3 phone numbers, and it's the best possible matches. Other companies will say, oh, we can do up to 7. Well, how many people really have 7 phone numbers that is tied to them, right? So our system is based on an internal confidence score when we give you those phone numbers, and we only give you the top 3 phone numbers that our ID graph believes to be connected with that individual. Okay. If you want to, you could do mobile phone numbers only, and we'll give you the best mobile number to reach out to that individual or that homeowner. If you want to also select emails, you can. Emails are an additional credit. So multiple phone numbers, even if you get up to 3 phone numbers, it's still only one skip tracing credit. And then emails will give you the best email possible, and that'll be a one skip tracing credit as well. I will say for emails though, it's a lot harder to verify emails. A lot of people put bad data for emails, right? Like let's say if you're at the store and that person finally wore you out and they're like, hey, you want to sign up for our newsletter, or if you're shopping at the mall, whatever, and they're trying to get you to sign in and you're giving them an email. I mean, some people get like put Mickey Mouse 123 or you misspell your name, right? So there's a lot of bad emails that can come in. And so our system will not push that data out to you. We verify it first. And then if it's an email that's not bouncing, then we're like, okay, here's the email that you want to use. And then so you actually only get for the skip tracing credits, it's only essentially it deducts it based on what actually gets appended, meaning that let's say you have 100 properties that come in and only 90 come back with contact info, then you only get deducted 90 credits. Okay. And so let me actually show you how this looks real quick. And I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna select a range here. So let's say you only want to skip trace the first 25 properties. You can do 0 through 25, select max, and then we can download and skip trace this. I hit yes to proceed, and then it'll go ahead and reroute us here to start processing that. Whenever it wants to start.
So while it's doing that, I'll note that there was a comment in the chat that that
Oh, it
someone
just did it.
signed up and only got 25 credits. That is correct. That is how many credits everyone gets when they sign up. However, because you're here with us today, you're linked to us. Afterwards, Stephen is going to go in and add an additional 100 credits to everyone's account. So
Yeah.
anyone who is here with us will get 125 free credits for you to go play with the list. Stephen, there's a question here. Does phone burner also work with this? I think any dialer would work, right? You could
Yeah,
do it with.
any dialer works. So like this list here, we just got 20 out of 25 that we selected. So 20 properties came back with contact info. And then you would just select here to download your list. And then once you download your list, you can go ahead and open it and run it from there. But to answer your question, yeah, it's any dial I'll actually show you the list here because really what the dialer systems do is that they essentially just ask you to when you import information to map the fields, and so you just basically match the fields. Like it'll ask you like phone number to phone number, name, first name to first name, last name to last name, that type of thing. And then from there essentially is where you just map it with the information that you get from us. And so you just import your actual spreadsheet. So I'm trying to pull that up here for you guys too, so you could take a look because for whatever I got signed out. Okay.
Stephen, can I ask you questions while you're doing that? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
someone asked, how is it different from Remine?
From Remind, I'm not familiar with them.
Okay. I think that's what everyone, not everyone, a lot of MLSs offer Remine, I believe. Um, And so what about what do you have for commercial real estate? Do you have commercial properties available in there as well?
Yeah, so we do have access to commercial properties. It's going to actually be considered as when you go to property types as other. I'll show you that here shortly too. Give me 1 second. Okay, I had to sign back into my
No worries. Elise,
office account.
it is not a trial. The 125 credits are free credits. You can use them today or 3 years from now. So, and they only charge you when you pull phone numbers or email addresses. All of the other information is completely free. If you're going to send out mailers, you can download the list and send out mailers. Of course, that's going to be more expensive because you got to pay for stamps and the mailers, but
Hmm.
that's something that you could do. And Cheryl, I did address the fact that you only have 25 credits now when you sign up. And after the call, Stephen will go in and add an additional 100 credits to anyone who signed up during this call.
Yeah. And so, just to cap up, just to reinforce what Debbie was saying, it's completely free. I mean, it's kind of crazy, it's crazy. It sounds crazy, right? Because people are like, "Whoa, like you give this out for free?" It's like, yes, like this is free. So, there is no trial period. There is no type of cancellation because you just sign up once. All the data that we saw back here, right, on the property list builder, all of this that you're seeing is completely free. So, you know. The only time that you actually pay is like, let's say when we go back, if I went back to that pre-foreclosure list, right? And you actually, let's say, where was that one at? 43%, this one in Rowan, right? So remember how we skip trace this number here? That was one credit. And that gets deducted from your balance. You see here I have 48,000 my balance. But the only time you need to spend money is if you need to refill your credits. And also go back what that other person was asking. So like here's our property types here. So you have single family, you can target condos, small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, 5+ for multifamily large. You can do mobile homes, land, and other is going to be like the commercial properties that I was talking about. And then if I actually went to, for example, we also have advanced filters as well. I know we're kind of running short on time, so I don't have time to go through all this, but we do have tutorials for you to check out. But you could like literally filter people based on individual, LLC, banks or trusts, if they're absentee or not, if they're in state, out of state, if they're a cash buyer. And this is the portfolio thing I was talking about. So number of properties that they own, how many years they've owned the property, their portfolio value, sale price, their last sale date, right? So like we use this to find people that are still actively investing. Valuations and equity, you can do properties based on, let's say, if I want at least 50% equity, right, greater than or equal to. And let's say, depending on what type of realtor you are, what type of like pricing bracket that you like to list at, let's say if you're a luxury realtor and you want to only do $1 million only, you could put 1 million, right, as the minimum for like properties that you want to call on. Or let's say you want to cap it around mid-range, like for us, Jacksonville's going to be like around 400,000. So I would just go ahead and put 400,000 as my max, and let's say 250,000 as my minimum value, because that's the pocket I want to work in, right? You could totally do that, save and apply that, and we actually got 86,000 results just based on that. So, and I can pull this list and then skip trace it. And when you skip trace it, this is how it looks. So this is what's on your spreadsheet. And for the person asked about the dialer, this is the information. This is the spreadsheet that you import to your dialer. And so it'll give you the address, right? It'll give you the city, the county, state, zip. And then you also get first name, last name for the first owner. And then if there's a second owner on file, you get their first name and last name as well. And then we also provide you the mailing address. So like the mailing address is free. So for those of you that do mailers, you get this for free. You could do, you get the mailing address, mailing city, state, county, zip as well. It also goes down to the bedroom baths, right? Even the equity percentage, we put it here for you as well, so that you know how much equity they have when you're calling. And then here's the list of the phone numbers. So again, the top 3 phone numbers, and the accuracy goes in descending order. So the most accurate number is probably going to be this one in the first column. Second column is either their second number or let's say their spouse's number. And then this one may be like a friend or let's say a child or something. So and then it also shows you like what type of line type it is as well. And then if let's say you're pulling LLC list, let me see if we had any LLCs that came back on this list. Yeah, so like we have an LLC here, we have 2 LLCs right here, right? If it's an LLC list and it actually came back for information, I think this person did here. Yes. So like that one here, we came back with a landline, and then you actually get an optional first name and last name. And so that's the possible decision maker, business decision maker for that LLC. And you have a number that you can call them at.
Okay, Stephen, there's a couple of questions in here. Somebody's asking how reliable is the data and that an owner has equity.
So as in terms of equity, it's very accurate. I mean, I would say pinpoint accurate, maybe not. It might be like, let's say, a month off principal payment, for example. Our MLS data, it's updated weekly, and our property data is updated daily whenever the county sends us updates. So sometimes when you see a lag in, let's say, information, it's not always on us. It just depends on when the county, because there's 3,000 counties, over 3,000 counties in the US. And so it just depends on what each individual county does when in the way that they process their information, right? So, like I said, also the more rural you are, the more they are kind of lax in updating their data. And sometimes it also depends on how they enter their data, because some like if you download a list from us, we're going to be consistent across the board about how we present data to you, right? I mean, we're a data company, but let's say counties, for example, there's a lot of manual entry. And so you also run into user errors when they're manually entering that information. And so, it's just part of the territory when you're doing like bulk data like this. As far as our contact data goes, though, like for phone numbers, emails, 80% is our average, is what we're averaging at, which is fairly high considering that most are like 50% or worse.
Excellent. So the link to sign up is in the chat. I put it in there. Yes, we will have a recording, a replay up on the YouTube channel. If you click on the link up in there where I have the subscribe, you will get a notification when we put the new recording up. And somebody else is asking where you get the data from. Um, Chris Rains, the referral ID is already in the link to sign up. So if you just click on that, it'll make you connected to us so that you get the extra 100 credits after the call. Do you want to answer anything about the where the data comes from,
Yeah,
Stephen?
so this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in the presentation, but 95% of our data is actually personally derived data from prime tracers. And then 5% is third-party brokered data, which they get the data that we purchase from those guys is through first-party opt-in as well. Anybody that sends their data to us, it's like I said, we follow very strict regulations on how we acquire data, and all of it is proprietary. It also depends on how you like organize the data as well. So we use a proprietary ID graph, which essentially helps us organize our contacts through machine learning and AI. Obviously, everyone uses AI now, but we also have data scientists that help us refine the data as well. For the property data, that's actually outsourced from multiple providers, and you could probably look them up online if you wanted to do that. But it's like if you're thinking about just for example, right? You have CoreLogic, you got First American, which has data tree, and so it's basically a combination of that and public available information, which is through the county records. And so we get that information from the county, and then we update our records that way as well.
Okay, so a couple of questions here. The first one, is it do not call compliant? The answer is no. You need to run the data through your do not call list, right?
Hmm.
And secondly, how fresh is the data? Um, Super fresh, but go for it, Stephen. Answer that
Yeah,
one.
it's daily. It's daily refresh. The only thing that's not daily is like again the MLS information and like let's say foreclose like the tax lien information is monthly, I would say. So every month we refresh that information for like tax lien auctions and stuff.
Is your pre-foreclosure data derived at the lender/credit report level, or does it only get into your system via a pre-foreclosure when a notice is recorded at the county level?
It's county level.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay. You guys, yes, we're going to do a breakout room. Stephen, thank you so much for sharing all of that
Yeah.
information. Two things. The sign up link is in the chat. I've posted it a bunch of times. Somebody said the QR code doesn't work. I tested it. It worked for me. Um, and the
Yeah, you guys
link
need it again. There you
also,
go.
yeah, the link also worked for me. I I have been trying to put the slides in the chat just like Ray does, but boy, oh boy, it's hard to. I feel like a one-armed wallpaper hanger over here doing the slides and trying to get breakout rooms set up and everything. But phew, okay, we are going to do these breakout rooms. So first of all, Stephen, I didn't prepare you for this. Do you have an icebreaker question you would like to them to answer as they go into the breakout rooms?
What are you doing right now to generate leads for your business?
Perfect. Love that. All right, you guys, go to your rooms.